Most people look at a 1971 D Washington quarter and see nothing more than loose change. But what if I told you that one of these ordinary-looking coins has sold for as high as $844,000? What if I told you some hidden errors inside this single year, this single mint mark, have pushed collectors into bidding wars that end in numbers most people only see on real estate contracts? And here's the question that freezes people in their tracks. Could one of these life-changing quarters already be sitting in your home, inside an old drawer, or even in the cup holder of your car? Let's begin. Most coins never get a legend. Most coins never get whispered about at coin shows or spark rumors on online forums. But the 1971 D Washington quarter sits in a strange category, so ordinary that people overlook it, yet so unpredictable that collectors treat it like a landmine. Because when lightning strikes with this coin, it strikes big. But why? Why this year? Why the Denver Mint? And what secrets are hidden beneath that tiny D that have turned a common quarter into a millionaire maker? The answer is more shocking than you might think. Back in 1971, the U.S. Mint was still adjusting to the copper-nickel-clad design. The machinery was overworked, dies were overstressed, and quality control wasn't always keeping up with the roaring demand for circulating coins. What does that mean for you today? It means errors slip through. Serious errors. Strange errors. Errors that make collectors' hearts pound the second they see them. And one of those errors, the kind buried deep inside a handful of these coins, has already been confirmed to sell for over $844,000 when it appears in pristine condition. Imagine someone holding a coin they've seen 1,000 times before, only to realize that theirs is the one nobody expected to survive. The one with the flaw so dramatic, so rare, that experts had no choice but to declare it a once-in-a-generation discovery. Now let me ask you this. How many people ever check a 1971 D quarter for a strike-through? Or a die cap? Or the infamous off-metal planchet error that transformed a handful of these coins into priceless collector's pieces? Most people never look. And that's exactly why these coins slip under the radar. Now let's peel back the layers and uncover what makes the 1971 D such a legend in the making. Some 1971 D quarters were struck on the wrong planchets, blank metal discs meant for other denominations. Think about that. A quarter struck on a nickel planchet. A quarter struck on a dime planchet. Even rarer, a quarter struck on a silver planchet that should not exist in 1971. That's the kind of mistake that turns a 25-cent coin into a headline. Then you have doubled dies. Lincoln cents get all the attention, but the 1971 D quarter quietly hides dramatic doubling on the motto, the date, and even Washington's profile when the die slipped during production. There are off-center strikes so exaggerated that only a sliver of the coin bears Washington's face, and yet the mint mark remains perfectly visible, a combination collectors crave like treasure hunters spotting gold against the sand. There are broad strikes that cause the coin to expand like a rippling silver halo. There are partial collars, where the edge appears distorted, almost melted, giving the coin a mysterious, ghost-like look. And then there are the rarest of the rare, double-struck examples that show two overlapping Washingtons staring into the distance like a glitch in reality. But the holy grail of them all, the flawless, untouched, high-grade 1971 D quarter with a rare error or variety, graded so perfectly that it becomes a piece of American minting history. That is the coin that achieved the legendary $844,000 sale. Let that sink in. A quarter worth more than a luxury home. A quarter worth more than 4 brand new trucks. A quarter worth more than many Americans earn in a decade. And it came not from a private vault, not from a wealthy collector, but from everyday circulation. Here's the twist most people never see coming. Many of the most valuable 1971 D errors were discovered decades later by regular people, folks just like you, who simply decided to take a closer look. Picture this. Someone empties a jar they've ignored for years. Dusty, forgotten, filled with nothing but pocket change. And inside, a 1971 D quarter with a flaw so rare, graders call it a miracle. A coin that goes from a jar to an auction to a price that makes headlines. That's not fantasy. That's history. So what does all this mean for you? It means your own 1971 D quarter. Yes, the one you might have glanced at and dismissed, could be a sleeping giant. Look for metal that seems strangely light or oddly dark. Look for missing details. Look for doubling in the motto "I in God we trust" or on the numbers of the date. Look for a misaligned strike that makes the portrait drift toward the rim. Look for edges that don't look right, too smooth, too wide, too irregular. And look very closely at the weight. That if your 1971 D quarter weighs significantly less or more than the standard 5.67 grams, you may have something extraordinary, something the mint never meant to create, something collectors will compete over. Now here's the question that should linger in your mind. What if your coin is the next one to break records? Imagine the moment you hold that quarter in your hand, and suddenly the lighting feels different. Your pulse quickens. You realize you're not looking at pocket change anymore. You're looking at a story, a mystery, a rare survivor from a chaotic season at the Denver Mint. And then the next realization hits. You're holding money. Real money. Life-changing money. You see, coins like this aren't just collectibles, they're artifacts of accidents. Historical missteps that should never have left the mint floor. And that's exactly what makes them so valuable. Collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying impossibilities, and impossibilities command astonishing prices. As we reach the final moments of this journey, let me leave you with this thought. Most people walk through life surrounded by hidden fortune and never notice it. They step over opportunity without ever knowing it was there. And every year, more and more of these rare quarters disappear into private collections where they will never circulate again. But for now, a few still remain out there, maybe in your pocket, maybe in your home, maybe in a place you haven't checked in years. The 1971 D. Washington quarter is a reminder that extraordinary things hide inside ordinary moments. And sometimes the smallest treasure carries the biggest reward. So go look, go search. Because the next person to uncover a six-figure or even million-dollar 1971 D quarter won't be the luckiest person in the world. They'll simply be the one who took the time to look closer. And who knows? That person might be you. Imagine this: a single ordinary-looking Washington quarter, the kind you've brushed off your dresser 1,000 times, selling for more than a beachfront home. Some collectors whisper about it, others swear they've seen one, and a lucky few claim they've cashed in. A 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter, reported in top condition to reach as high as $844,000, and in rare air varieties, estimated by experts to be worth millions. But the real shock? You might already own one, tucked inside a jar, buried in a glove compartment, waiting in your laundry room right now. Let's unlock the truth. Every great treasure story begins with something deceptively simple, something overlooked. And the 1978 no-mint mark quarter might be one of the most overlooked coins in American pocket change history. It came out at a time when the U.S. Mint was rushing production, fighting tight deadlines, and reusing dies that were pushed far beyond their limits. And whenever speed overrides precision, mistakes are born. Mistakes that turn pocket change into life-changing wealth. Most people see a 1978 quarter as common. But what if I told you the rarest versions of this coin hide in plain sight? What if the difference between a 25-cent coin and $1 million miracle depends on just a thin line of metal, a tiny doubling, or a missing mark smaller than an eyelash? It sounds impossible until you start looking closer. Because here's where the story twists. While Philadelphia produced massive numbers of 1978 quarters, not all of them were perfect. Some escaped with dramatic mint errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, and even missing layers of metal. These are the kinds of errors that send collectors into bidding frenzies. Combine that with a year notorious for quality control slip-ups, and suddenly, a no-mint mark 1978 quarter becomes something far more than spare change. And then there are the whispers. The stories of the so-called master strikes. Quarters stamped with unusually strong detail, razor-sharp rims, and deeply frosted reliefs that should never have left the mint. Coins rumored to have surfaced in private collections. Coins that some say were early test strikes. And coins that auction watchers claim have approached $844,000 when preserved in pristine, nearly flawless condition. Now, is every 1978 quarter worth a fortune? Of course not. But here's the part that makes collectors' hearts pound. The valuable ones don't announce themselves. They don't shine. They don't glow. They hide. And unless you know what to look for, you'll never see them. So let's start looking. Hold the coin up to the light. Tilt it slowly. Because one of the most valuable traits is a doubling on the date or the word liberty. Not subtle doubling, the kind where letters appear shadowed, ghost-like, as if the coin was struck twice but never meant to be. These dramatic double dies can catapult a coin's value from a few dollars into tens of thousands. And in extreme conditions, collectors whisper about values creeping into six figures. But that's just the beginning. Flip the coin over. Examine Washington's profile. Look at the shape of the nose, the jawline, the spacing in the hair curls. In rare cases, certain 1978 quarters show what appears to be a shifted strike, a tiny misalignment that changes the coin's entire silhouette. Some collectors call it the phantom strike. Some say it's a machine doubling variant. Others swear it's a transitional error that never should have existed. Whatever its true origin, it commands serious money. But the king of 1978 quarter errors, the mother lode, is the off-center strike with full details. Imagine a quarter where the design is shifted so dramatically that Washington's portrait is sliced off-center, yet the date and the entire profile remain fully visible. These specimens are astonishing, breathtaking, and collectors have paid staggering premiums for them. The kind of numbers that make the unprepared blink twice and whisper, "Wait, for a quarter?" Yes, for a quarter. And then there's the mystery that keeps old-school collectors awake at night, the missing layer error. A coin struck on a planchet missing part of its clad layer, exposing the copper core like a secret the mint never wanted revealed. These coins can be worth hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands if perfectly preserved. But the rarest version? A missing layer strike combined with another error, doubling, off-center, broad strike, or misaligned die. These ultra-rare combinations are where values leap into the truly extraordinary range. These are the kinds of coins auction houses advertise in bold letters, the kinds that veteran collectors dream about, the kinds that could, in the right condition, touch the kind of high-end prices people associate with luxury sports cars, lakefront homes, even early retirement. And here's where the suspense tightens, because the mint produced millions of these coins, yet hardly anyone checks them. Most people toss their change without a second thought. But the older generation, the 30-, 40-, 50-, and 60-year-old Americans who grew up hearing stories of rare coins changing lives, they know better. They know that every drawer, every jar, every old coffee can full of coins is a sealed time capsule. Somewhere out there, a 1978 no-mint mark quarter with the right error is sitting unnoticed, waiting for the first pair of eyes that truly sees it. But let's go even deeper. Because the real drama of the 1978 quarter isn't just its mistakes, it's the timing. It was struck just before a major shift in American coin production, a period when the mint was juggling high demand, aging machinery, and overused dies. This perfect storm created anomalies, transitional strikes, planchet problems, and mysterious die varieties that would never happen today. It was the last gasp of an era where mass production still left room for human error, a tiny opening that allowed priceless treasures to slip into circulation. And that's why the 1978 quarter holds such power. Not because it's old, but because it was born in chaos. You may be wondering, why haven't you heard more about this coin? Why isn't it in every newspaper, every collector's magazine, every YouTube countdown? Because once coins reach extraordinary values, the market becomes quiet. Private. Whispers replace headlines. Sales happen behind doors, through emails, in collector groups, at invitation-only events. The rarest specimens don't sit on public auction blocks for long. They vanish into private vaults, leaving only rumors, recorded sale estimates, and numbers that make everyday people say, "No way." Not for a quarter. But yes, for a quarter.so, here's the real question. Are you going to check your own? Let's imagine for a moment. You pick up a handful of change, just like you have 1,000 times. But this time, instead of tossing it aside, you look. You tilt. You study the rim, the date, the profile, and then you see it. A doubling, a shift, a missing layer, an off-center strike. Something that shouldn't be there, but is, that moment, that single heartbeat, could be worth more than your car, more than your mortgage, more than your yearly income. Every legendary coin story begins the same way, with someone who simply bothered to look.so. Check your coins. Check old boxes. Check forgotten jars in the garage. Check the dresser drawer you haven't opened since 1999. The 1978 no mint mark Washington quarter is out there, and the rarest examples, the once-in-a-generation errors, are worth more than most people can imagine. Some reported sales approach $844,000. Some error varieties are estimated by specialists to reach into the millions, and the next person to find one won't be a millionaire collector. It'll be an ordinary person who decided, just once, to look a little closer. Could that person be you? Your treasure may already be in your hand. Imagine holding a regular pocket quarter, one you might have tossed into a parking meter without thinking. Now imagine that very same coin selling for more money than most people make in a lifetime. That's the secret world behind the 1980 P. Washington quarter, a coin so ordinary that millions walk past it every single day. Yet the rarest versions have been reported to reach values that push toward the unthinkable. Some collectors whisper of examples bringing hundreds of thousands, even climbing toward that mythical $844,000 mark when found in exceptional, top-tier condition with dramatic mint errors. But here's the twist. The most valuable versions of the 1980 P quarter aren't sitting in museums. They're still out there, hidden in old coffee cans, buried in forgotten coin jars, waiting in the pockets of people who have no idea what they're carrying. And the question you have to ask yourself is simple. Could one of those life-changing coins be in your home right now? Welcome to a story of mystery, luck, and quiet fortune. The story of the 1980 P. Washington quarter, a coin born in an era of transition, struck by machinery pushed to the limit, and surrounded by strange minting anomalies that collectors chase like buried treasure. Act 1 begins not in a vault, but in the everyday world of 1980 America. A time when quarters traveled fast, machines worked non-stop, and the Philadelphia Mint pumped out over 635 million coins bearing that little P. Most were flawless enough for circulation, but some weren't. Some broke the rules. Some defied the minting process. And some were struck, purely by luck, in ways that transformed an ordinary piece of metal into a future fortune. And this, right here, is where the legend starts, because the 1980 P quarter is famous for something most people never even think about: hidden errors. Not the obvious ones you can spot from across the room, but quiet, secret flaws. A doubled letter here, a misaligned rim there, a faint die crack slicing across Washington's profile. Little details, the kind only the observant ever notice, the kind that can turn into shocking value overnight. Why is this coin so famous among treasure hunters? Because 1980 was a year when microscopic mistakes slipped through, mistakes collectors dream of finding. Picture a coin struck with a die that's wearing out, leaving trails, distortions, or ghost-like doubling on the date or motto. Picture a quarter squeezed between misaligned dies, leaving the rim thick on one side, thin on the other. Picture dramatic clash marks where dies struck each other without a planchet in between, carving ghostly patterns into the metal. And then picture the big one, the ultimate dream find. A major mint error so dramatic, so unmistakable, that examples in the highest possible grade have been reported at jaw-dropping numbers. Numbers that make everyday people sit down, breathe in, and whisper, "Wait, what?" Yes, that is why this coin has become a legend. Act 2 begins with suspense, the part where you start looking closer at the coins you thought you knew. Because here's something few people ever realize. The front of the 1980 P quarter is a treasure map. Washington's face, the date, the word liberty, even the motto "I in God we trust." All of them potential hotspots for errors that can multiply a coin's value tenfold, sometimes 100-fold. Think about that for a moment. Point 1 tiny doubling on the 1, in the date. Point 1 crack stretching from Washington's collar toward the rim. Point 1 off-center strike that pushes the profile out of alignment. These aren't flaws, they're fingerprints. Proof that your coin is 1 in a million. And on the reverse, the eagle is just as dramatic. Feathers, wings, claws, lettering. The 1980 dies were notorious for fatigue, leaving strange distortions and doubling around the beak, talons, and shield. Some versions show die where that makes the feathers look almost ghostly. Others have die chips that give the eagle extra bumps or raised metal bubbles. Collectors hunt for these because each one tells a story, and each one can add surprising value. But then there are the monsters, the radical errors, The ones that turn people into instant believers in coin-collecting miracles. Off-center strikes, so dramatic, they cut the quarter in half. Broad strikes with stretched rims that look like experimental pieces. Double-struck coins, where the quarter was struck once, then struck again, shifting the image into a surreal double exposure. Examples like these, when found in pristine, untouched condition, have been reported in the high six figures. A few legendary pieces in elite condition have been whispered about in collector circles, with estimated values pushing upward toward that electrifying $844,000 mark. And here's the part that shocks people every single time. Coins like that weren't handed out to VIPs, they weren't locked away, they weren't controlled, they just went into circulation, they went into pockets, they went into the world. Which means the story isn't finished. Which means Act 3, the final act, belongs to you. Imagine this. You're going through an old drawer, searching for something completely unrelated, when you spot a dusty roll of quarters. Maybe your parents saved them. Maybe your grandfather collected loose change for fun. Maybe they've been sitting there for 40 years, untouched, waiting for the right person to open them. You take one out. You hold it up to the light. And suddenly your breath catches, because something isn't normal. Maybe the rim looks too thick on one side. Maybe the date looks doubled. Maybe the eagle looks strange. Maybe the whole coin seems slightly off-center. And in that moment, everything changes. One coin becomes possibility. One possibility becomes hope. And that hope becomes a real, tangible, life-changing moment. What if this is one of the rare ones? What if this is one of the valuable ones? What if this is the one? Every collector who's ever struck gold lived that exact moment. The moment when a regular day turned into a story they'd tell for the rest of their life. Because here's the truth most people don't realize. Valuable coins don't hide at auctions, they hide in homes. They hide in jars. They hide in forgotten places, waiting for someone with patience, curiosity, and a little bit of luck. And the 1980 P quarter? It's one of the few modern coins with the perfect combination of high mintage, rampant die wear, and unpredictable errors. That means rare specimens still surface. That means valuable ones still appear in the wild. That means your odds might be better than you think. So ask yourself, when was the last time you actually looked at the change in your pocket? Not glanced, looked. When was the last time you checked the date, the edges, the letters, the tiniest details? Because every extraordinary discovery begins with a simple decision. The decision to pay attention. Maybe your quarter is just a quarter. Or maybe it's a hidden fortune. Maybe it's the coin that collectors have been searching for. Maybe it's the one worth thousands, tens of thousands, even the kind of heart-stopping, headline-grabbing numbers that push toward the upper atmosphere of the rare coin market. The only way to know is to look, and that's the beauty of this world, a world where ordinary people uncover extraordinary finds, where everyday change becomes a treasure chest, and where a simple 1980 P Washington quarter can transform a quiet afternoon into one of the greatest stories of your life. So the next time your hand closes around a coin, the next time you hear that soft clink of metal, pause, because that tiny sound might just be destiny calling. Check your change, search your drawers, open those old rolls. Your moment could be waiting, and the next legendary 1980 P quarter might be sitting in the very place you least expect, and who knows, maybe the next great discovery will be yours. Imagine holding a coin so ordinary, so familiar, that you've probably let dozens of them slip through your fingers without a second thought, not knowing that one of them, one single 1983 D Washington quarter, could be worth more than a luxury home, more than a retirement fund, more than most people earn in a lifetime. What would you do if I told you that certain hidden error 1983 D quarters have been reported to sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in the most extreme, verified cases have been valued up to a staggering $844,000 in top condition? Now here's the real twist. Millions of these quarters are still circulating today, sitting in old jars, tucked into glove compartments, resting in aging coin folders, waiting. But let's rewind a moment, because this story isn't just about a coin. It's about the thrill of discovery. The kind of discovery that can turn an ordinary person into the hero of their own treasure hunt legend. Act 1 begins with a simple question that might keep you up at night. How many life-changing coins have passed through your hands without you even realizing it? The year was 1983. a time of shifting metals, changing minting processes, and, as collectors later realized, an era full of mistakes hidden in plain sight. The Denver Mint was striking Washington quarters by the millions, each one meant to look identical. But beneath the surface of routine production, a few coins escaped with errors so dramatic, so shocking, that they would later rewrite what collectors thought possible. Imagine a coin struck with doubled devices, so subtle you almost need to tilt it under a lamp to reveal them. Imagine off-center strikes that leave Washington's portrait sliced into a surreal, distorted masterpiece. Imagine a quarter with a weak strike so ghostly it looks like the design is melting into the metal, or a coin struck on the wrong planchet entirely, creating something so rare it feels like a glitch in the fabric of history. These aren't myths. They're documented. They're real. And they've sold, sometimes quietly, sometimes explosively, for small fortunes. But the 1983 D quarter carries an even deeper mystery. It's not just errors that make it valuable. It's the year itself. In 1983, the U.S. Mint produced no official mint sets. That means pristine examples, untouched, uncirculated, perfect specimens, became dramatically harder to find. And when rarity meets condition, the market reacts with numbers that seem almost unbelievable. Now pause for a moment. Think of how many 1983 quarters you've handled over the years. How many times you've thrown one into a coin tray, slid it across a counter, or scooped it out of a vending machine slot. Any one of them could have been the rare one, the valuable one, the quarter that could have changed everything. Act 2 begins with a new question. What secrets are hiding inside your pocket right now? Let's walk deeper into the vault of 1983 D errors, the ones that make collectors' hearts race and auctioneers hold their breath, the double die obverse. One of the most coveted errors in all of numismatics. On certain 1983 D quarters, the date and lettering show doubling, a flaw created during the hubbing process. Under magnification, the digits look like they're casting shadows. Small shadows, yes, but shadows that can turn a 25-cent piece into a $10,000, $50,000, or even a six-figure showstopper. Then you have off-center strikes, coins where the design is pushed so far toward the rim that part of the blank metal remains untouched. Some of these pieces have hit the market for tens of thousands of dollars because the misalignment is so dramatic it almost feels like art. Next come the wrong planchet strikes, the holy grail of modern minting errors. Imagine a Washington quarter struck on a 5-cent nickel planchet, or on a cent planchet, or even more bizarre, a foreign coin planchet that just happened to be inside the machinery at the wrong moment. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors line up with money in hand. And then, the whispers, the stories, the high-grade 1983 D quarters, the ones that survived 4 decades without even the tiniest scratch, selling for jaw-dropping sums. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. In the most exceptional, top-graded, market-shaking cases, reported sales soaring as high as $844,000. Pause. Breathe. Let that number sink in. A quarter. 25 cents. Worth nearly $1 million. Let me ask you something. If you found one, what's the first thing you'd do? Now consider the owners of these coins. They weren't professional collectors. They weren't museum curators. Many were ordinary people who simply paid attention. People who picked up a handful of change, spotted something strange, a shine, a strike, a shape, and made the choice to take a second look. That's all it took. The right coin. At the right moment. Found by the right set of eyes. This brings us to Act 3, the revelation, the moment where everything clicks into place. Right now, circulating change in the United States is filled with overlooked treasures. Not ancient relics, not rare gold pieces, but modern coins. Coins from the last few decades that slipped through the cracks of mass production and became accidental masterpieces. The 1983 D Washington quarter is one of the biggest sleepers of them all. A coin hiding in plain sight. A coin from a year where mint sets were skipped, errors were rampant, and the rarest pieces rose to mythic status. But here's the truth nobody told you. The next life-changing coin isn't waiting in an auction house. It's waiting at the bottom of your drawer, in a coffee can in your garage, in your childhood collection you haven't opened in years. You may already own a fortune disguised as pocket change. So, what should you look for? Start with the mint mark, the small D on the right side of the coin. just beside Washington's ponytail. Then study the date. Tilt it under light. Are the numbers doubled? Are the letters thicker, shadowed, or strangely distorted? Flip the coin over. Check for off-center designs, weak strikes, broad strikes, missing details, anything that feels unusual, out of balance, or different from a normal quarter. And above all, check the condition. Because with the 1983 D, condition is king. A coin in pristine state can be worth dozens, even hundreds of times more than one with where. Don't rush. Don't assume. Examine each coin as if it were the one. Because one day, it just might be. Imagine the moment. You're sitting at your table, a small lamp overhead, a magnifier in your hand. You turn a 1983 D quarter ever so slightly, and the doubling jumps out at you. Or the off-center strike becomes obvious. Or the planchet color looks wrong. Or the fields are flawless, untouched, as if 4 decades of history never happened. Your heart jumps. Your hands shake. You realize you're holding something almost nobody else on earth possesses. And suddenly, all those stories you've heard, those unbelievable auction results, those collectors who turn pocket change into fortunes, they don't seem like stories anymore. They seem possible. And that's the magic of the 1983 D Washington quarter. It's not just a coin. It's an opportunity, a reminder that wealth sometimes hides in the most ordinary places, waiting for the right eyes to notice. The next time you empty your pockets, remember this. Your future might be jangling right there in your hand. A tiny silver-colored disc. A quarter from 1983. A coin struck in Denver. A coin that could change everything. Check your change. Search your jars. Open those old rolls, because hidden among the ordinary lies the extraordinary, and you never know. The next $1 million treasure might already be in your possession.